Addiction is a result of adaptations in the brain that leads to changes in behavior that translates, among others, in the inability to control the intake of the drug.
I wish I wasn't doing the drug. I wish I wasn't doing it. I really do. I swear I wish I was not doing this drug. It's cost me a lot of, I've lost everything. The only thing I have left is my bike.
She said, you know, Mom, I never will be able to leave the baby alone with you. You know that, don't you? And that, and I think I just kind of, probably just kind of changed the subject or whatever. Didn't want to face it.
Everything was slipping through my fingers that was important to me. You know, I thought I wasn't going to ever lose my kids again because I wasn't going to use, and here I was using again.
You know, I just figured one day I could just stop. But it hasn't really worked that way.
To admit that you are doing things not out of free will, but almost like a reflex, is not something that many people want to accept. And it's also very difficult to understand.
We've gone through this for years with her. She's been in a rehab place before, but she made a choice. Choice was she wasn't ready for that. She wanted to leave. Then she ends up relapsing. She ends up drinking. She's taking drugs. We've tried everything we could to help her, but it's not so much of us helping her, it's her trying to help herself.
It's hard to understand that someone loses control, that you cannot regulate your own behavior. It's very hard for us to understand that because we do it. That's what we call freedom. Well, in addiction, part of that ability is disrupted. The area of the brain that allows us to do free choices is not working properly. For many years, one of the discussions has been whether drug addiction is a psychological disease or whether it's a physical disease. And really that neither has helped the field because ultimately, what is a psychological disease? A psychological disease is a disease that comes out of our brains. In the past, when you had an emotion and you were sad, or you were very happy, or you were very angry, you said, well, that's psychological. But there is an area in the brain that is responsible for us feeling these emotions. Just like there is an area in the brain that is responsible for me to be able to move my fingers. It's just different areas of the brain. So, is drug addiction a psychological or a physical disease? I would say drug addiction is a disease of the brain that translates, that disease translates into abnormal behavior.
As she got a little older, became 15 and 16, things started to fall apart. And the more she was given freedom to make her own choices as she grew older, the worse choices she made and harmful choices for herself. And so I'm interested in your research because I would really like to know what happens in the brain. What triggered this?
As we know more and more about most of the diseases, this is what we're coming to understand, that for most of the diseases, there's that interaction between the genes and your environment. So there are some people that are more vulnerable for drug addiction. We're all born differently. And like with any other disease, there are some people that are more vulnerable, for example, for depression, or they may be more vulnerable for hypertension or for cancer. The same thing with addictions. There are some people that, because of hereditary reasons, are more likely to become addicted to drugs. That's one of the elements. Environment. We know that there are some environments that are actually higher risk, while there are other environments that are protective. For example, which are high-risk environments? High-risk environments are ones where you have kids, for example, where they are in a household where no parents' surveillance, high levels of stress, high levels of abuse, high levels of accessibility of drugs. Well, they have the drugs in front. They have no constraints. They have little alternative behaviors. They'll start to take it. They are adolescents, and that's a vulnerability. You're more likely to become addicted if you start in adolescence or in childhood. So those are elements that are likely to be playing a role. So it's genetic as well as environmental factors and what stage during development you are at when you start taking the drugs. It's much easier to explain a disease of the heart where the heart just pumps. So if the muscle is not working, the heart cannot be pumped and you don't have enough blood. The brain is very complex. It regulates our emotions, it regulates our thoughts, our decisions. And so when certain areas are not functioning properly, it manifests in much more complex ways than a muscle not contracting and pushing the blood. And so that is why it has been so difficult to translate this drug addiction as a disease of the brain. Nobody would actually question the notion that if you have a heart disease, you have a disease, and that removes your responsibility. You have the responsibility of changing your lifestyle, if it requires reducing weight, if it requires exercising, if it requires taking medication. That is your responsibility. And if you do not take it seriously, your likelihood of responding properly is much lower. The same thing with drug addiction.
I'm having a difficult time believing that addiction is the same thing as heart disease. I'm having a hard time believing that that is a disease.
But let me throw it back at you, and it's actually one of the reasons why people many times have trouble like conceptualizing drug addiction as a disease is because they say, well, the changes were not there before they took the drug. Had they never taken the drug, they would have never become addicted. But the same thing is for hypertension. You are actually going to, or for diabetes. There are certain people that will never become diabetic if they always kept their weight within a certain level. And so their doctor can tell you, don't eat that, and you will not develop diabetes. So all of the diseases have a certain level of behavior that facilitates that its development.
I'm more in tune with what she's saying, but I'm not there yet. Let's put it that way. I'm not there yet. I'm sorry.
No, don't feel sorry. I think it is important to be convinced yourself. And as I say, it has been a concept that it's difficult for people to accept because there's a notion that the person voluntarily is taking the drugs. And you sort of says, well, the person started to take the drugs. They are doing it because they want to feel good. Well, a lot of people that get addicted stop feeling good about the drugs a long time before, and they're still taking it.
I remember thinking to myself that, yeah, this is fun. I'll do this for a while, but I ain't gonna get all wrapped up in it. I ain't gonna get addicted to it. I ain't gonna let happen to me what happened to so-and-so. And I can remember thinking that. And then I don't know when like I said, I don't remember when it happened, but all of a sudden I realized that I was needing that drug every single day, and that other things were getting neglected and put off. And pretty soon it was all about Lisa and dope.
Maybe I'm not strong enough willed, or I can't figure it out. I mean, it's one of those things that I'm baffled by it. It's frustrating for me to fall back in when I do, because I don't want to, but surely some part of me must want to.
All of the drugs, whether it's heroin, alcohol, cigarettes, marijuana, all of them activate the dopamine pathway. These drugs make you feel good. It's a way of recreating what nature has constructed to ensure that we do certain behaviors. So it rewards us in a way to ensure that we will do it again because we like the way it made us feel. Drugs activate the same systems that are activated by natural rewards, as basic and as instinctual as food, as basic as and instinctual as sex and procreation. They activate the same reward circuits, but they do it in a much more efficient way. So they do it stronger, longer lasting. The drug just goes directly to the dopamine and kicks it and kicks it and kicks it and kicks it. The signal of that is this is incredibly important and you learn it. You just actually, as we say, this is then hardwire into your brain. That's what the parent has to understand, or the spouse has to understand, that there's been a change, an adaptation from the use of the drug that leads to this situation of almost as if the individual was on a state of deprivation, where taking the drug is indispensable for survival. It's as powerful as that.
Even though I'm on probation, I could go to prison, you know, lose my kids again, lose my job, everything that I have going for me in my life, I could lose all of that in just a matter of seconds. You know, if I pick up and use again, I will. But in my addiction, there's something in my head just saying to do it. You know, just that craving takes over my body.
There's a part of your brain that now has an additional responsibility, that is to get drugs. And that becomes sometimes the #1 priority, because you can't, you know, how ashamed how can I even look at myself in the mirror when I couldn't feel good playing with my kids unless I was on drugs.
Yes, hello.
Hi.
I'm Dr. Nora Volkov, and I want to ask you some questions. Your main problem was with methamphetamine.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when did you start taking methamphetamine?
Probably when I was 30, early 30s.
So you've been taking methamphetamine for 10 years?
Yeah, more. Yeah, about
So how did it start?
Well, I was doing a lot of coke,
Mm-hmm.
and the meth got me off of coke.
And how frequently were you smoking?
Daily if I had it. Like a hit in the morning or so to go to work, and maybe a couple times at work and after work.
How did it affect your life, methamphetamine?
Well, it turned me basically from a law-abiding person into someone that would commit grand theft larceny at work, and I'm still paying that back. I owe like $16,000.
So you would take things in order to pay to buy methamphetamine?
Yeah, I would just do like phony returns, you know, and embezzlement, basically.
So what was the difference between cocaine and methamphetamine?
When you're not on it, you just feel so unnormal, and you kind of really like to get some just to get back to a normal feeling.
When someone gets intoxicated with the drug increases dopamine. But when people repeatedly take the drug, there are adaptations in these same pathways, dopamine pathways, that actually lead to a decrease in function of this system. There's a lack of interest of things, a lack of excitement, anxiety, boredom, and that leads them to take the drug to try to get to a normal stage.
I did drugs not to get sick. I did drugs to function.
You wake up, maybe you don't want to get out of bed, you pop that pill, whoop, and you're back to normal, right? That's when I felt like it was for me. I'd get out of bed, I wasn't right with the world. I would do some opiates, and I would feel right.
As soon as I woke up, I would sit on the edge of the bed. My bowl was already loaded, and it was ready, and I'd sit there and I'd smoke it before I did anything else, before I let the dog out, or before I went down and said hi to the kids, or before I did anything. That was the first thing I did. That's what I had to do.
Keep your eyes closed.
Brain imaging has been an incredible tool for us to understand how drugs affect the human brain. So we can compare the brains of people that are addicted to drugs with that of people that are not addicted to drugs. Even without having the full set, these images look quite abnormal. This purple part here, very large ventricle enlargement he has. And that's a sign of brain damage. And it's very, like for example, if you compare this one, the normal control, you see this space here, this tiny little space here, that's normal. But you can see how gigantic this enlargement is here and here. And that has to do very likely with the effects of the drug.
Okay.
This is your image, and what we've shown is an image of a person of just also a man of the same age that's not taking any drugs. Different colors represent the concentration of the dopamine terminals. Let's look at the normal brain. The areas in red show very, very high concentrations. Now, look at your brain and see how that red basically has disappeared. This is one of the cells in the brain that's most sensitive to the damaging effects of methamphetamine. And you can clearly see there's much less activity in your brain than in the brain of this person. The other thing that concerned me too is this thing. When you grow older, you start to see these enlargements. Do you really want to accelerate an abnormality that we see in old people just by taking a drug? So one of the concerns is, of course, that as people that take methamphetamine grow older and continue to take it, are they putting themselves at risk for neurological diseases?
That won't go away.
That won't go away, and that will create symptoms. So I'm being candid with you because there's no point of not being it. If you continue to take methamphetamine, this will not recover. I mean, it's bottom line. But I want to impress upon you the importance of really trying to stay clean, because you can do a lot of recovery. The more you get into the field of drug addiction, the more you realize how important it is to develop knowledge that will help develop treatments. It is in your best interest to do it. Can we strengthen those pathways that are disrupted in people that are addicted? Can we strengthen pathways of memory that can help the person that is addicted to drug learn to enjoy things again? Can we strengthen that? And that's where we actually are looking into, because yes, as your brain as an adult, well, not so plastic as if it was an adolescent, it still can modify itself. Okay?
All right, thanks.
No, thanks to you, John, and good luck.
All right, thanks.
Ultimately, there is the power of healing. There is the power of healing, and we can recover. And but it's not in many instances happening automatically. It does require intervention.
I was surprised to hear all the drugs he did. I had no idea that he was drinking that much or that he was high every day in school.
I'd get up some mornings and I'd be like, man, today's gonna suck. If I had some prescription pills left over from the weekend, I'd pop a couple of those.
This is a disorder of young people. Very little addiction starts after the age of 30. It almost always starts between the ages of 18 and 25.
How can we comprehend the concept of a person that wants to stop doing something and they cannot, despite catastrophic consequences? We're not speaking of little consequences. These are catastrophic. and yet they cannot control their behavior.
I mean, there have been so many things that I haven't accomplished because of the problem, I think.
My drinking's killing me, and I desperately need help.
The right medication with the right therapy really can give an individual a leg up in recovery.
There are more treatments available. There's better understanding. There's more acceptance that this is a medical condition with real medical solutions than there ever has been.
This whole addiction ruling your mind and thoughts, even though I lived through it, I still don't understand it.
One of the elements that I've come across with a lot of parents is that, and that's why I want to bring it up, is they say, we never suspected it. I mean, and this is a situation where the kid either dies or ends up in an emergency room admission with a severe case of intoxication. And when the parents, and you speak with the parents, they'll tell you many times, we never suspected it.
This is a disorder of young people. This is when it starts, almost universally. Very little addiction starts after the age of 30.
If you look at it from a kid's perspective, there's a lot of good reasons to use. They're exploring, they're learning to try different things. They have, as I mentioned earlier, they have impulse control problems with their brain, where they don't have very good judgment about how risky something is.
The adolescent brain is different from that of an adult. And that leads to behaviors that definitively put them at much higher risk to want to try drugs than the brain of an adult.
The kids that are most likely to become addicted when they use are the ones that have other problems going on in their life. So if the kid has depression or anxiety, or they have had a history of trauma or victimization, those things put them at much higher risk.
We all become sometimes very self-confident, and the issue is that parents say, it's not going to happen to my kids. We've provided them with a very good environment. They're great kids. Well, addiction can happen to any kid, to any kid. There's no one really that is protected.
This is me in the 6th grade. I was kind of high in that picture. Vizine's all you need.
Early drug abuse, very early drug abuse, and that can again be nicotine. You have a child that's smoking at 11, 12 years old. Should alert you about the possibility that that child may be smoking because there's an underlying mental illness that, while not completely manifest itself, is manifesting in a very preliminary way in a greater vulnerability to take drugs.
I just experimented with all of them, like X, meth, mushrooms. It's just the one that I liked the best was bud, because it just it was a calming feeling. Like, I had racing thoughts all the time and just chilled me out, and I liked that feeling. That's me. I think I was about 3 or 4.
Kids who have a risk of vulnerability for substance abuse or who are using drugs of abuse, their brains are different in terms of that. They have even less override of their impulsivity, and probably from factors that existed before they used drugs and exacerbated by using drugs.
This part of the brain we call the frontal lobe. The frontal lobes of the brain you can think of as putting brakes on behavior. The frontal lobes exist, at least in part, to slow us down from the exciting, rewarding things in life and cause us to consider and be cautious in our behavior.
this is the center, our frontal lobes, executive functioning, that override, I want it now. It's like, I wonder what the consequences are, or do I really want to weigh the plus minus of that?
And this stuff is the gray matter or cortex, that sort of the business end of each of the neurons in the brain. It appears that if you have less meat there, less gray matter, that's associated with this failure of inhibition. And so we think that these kids have simply less ability to control their behavior under various circumstances in accord with social norms and rules.
Yeah, I remember I took 10 caps of shrooms, and that's enough to kill you. So I was like, wow, I'm amazed that I'm still alive after that.
He burned his face. He lit a match and heated up a needle and burned his face.
The way my philosophy was that as long as you're alive, you're still going to be in this pain. So if you escape and then you die, it's not a big deal.
One of the things that is very important to recognize in drug addiction is that drug addiction is frequently a disease that occurs with other disorders: conduct disorder, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, depression, anxiety disorders, you name it.
The data are clear that kids with, or adults for that matter, with co-occurring disorders who aren't being treated, they don't do well, they drop out, they can't finish. If kids drop out of treatment, a drug treatment, because they don't have a psychiatric illness that's being treated, well, that can have incredible consequences.
Hey, Dylan, we better get going.
It's also 5:30.
Dylan got in trouble last fall. Basically, he was starting to have rage episodes, and where he couldn't control his anger at all.
Dylan decided to break our windows with a slingshot wrist rocket. He had an argument over doing a chore. It was a very simple task, but he didn't feel he needed to do it. So he snuck outside, shot out the windows, and while doing so, I had to go out and confront him. And he was holding the weapon, aiming it at me. I wasn't sure if he was gonna shoot me or what, but he didn't.
I was begging him to stop it, and finally he did stop it. And then at that point, I'd already called the sheriff, and they took him away, and I said, you can keep him for a while. And that was a really good thing for me to do for him, because he sat there in detention over Thanksgiving and almost up till Christmas.
We were at our wits' end. We were at the last rope or not. We'd just as soon walk away. But we knew it was so important for Dylan. We had to model for him to show him that, hey, you're in a tough spot, so are we. It's very stressful for us, fine. Let's deal with it.
I felt like the world was on my shoulders, like, oh, I am this responsible adult for this child and this kid, and he's doing this stuff, and there's nothing I can do to stop him. I don't know what to do. I've tried all kinds of stuff, and none of it really works.
It took about 3 weeks for him to come around in jail to see what he did, and finally start asking, what is really going on with me?
To try to help him, the court offered this MST, multi-systemic therapy.
Usually the treatment is time limited, a few months. The treatment consists of going with the kid into the community and directly involving the kid and the therapist. The therapist is out talking to the school officials, talking to the probation officer.
What do you think, Paige? Think he's ready?
I think that he doesn't have a lot of skills yet in asking for help when he needs it.
Let me tell you what my concern is, Dylan. How are you going to tell these people, I can't go with you?
I'm not really sure.
I mean, but it must have happened already. I mean, it's not like you're in this drug-free bubble. You know, I think you should really have some answers ready, some approaches ready. You know, a lot of the kids that I work with. Yeah, I'm part of the MST philosophy is that I'm on call, that the family has access to a therapist 24/7. It was sort of the beginning of getting him the help and getting him the services that he needed to make the changes that he's made now.
And of course, having multiple treatment sessions in the kid's home with the family present.
Hey, Alexa, you ready? So some problems with some inappropriate use of the internet. And one more.
Making homemade drugs,
Yeah.
I guess.
Talk to us. Trigger.
I don't know. I just wanted more money.
So what were you gonna do with the money?
Give it to you guys.
How are you gonna explain that, Dylan? Oh yeah, I have this extra $50, but I'm not gonna tell you where I got it from.
I don't know. I just wanted more money.
Mm-hmm. So the thought is I need money.
I don't know, like being able to control my own life. I felt independent, like doing that. I could make my own money. I could do just stuff like that.
Why can't you just earn it the old-fashioned way, Dylan?
I don't know.
I'll take that as a yes.
I don't know.
He's had one tool in the tool bag. You know, it's a bad day. I think I'll get high. The sun is shining. I think my girlfriend broke up with me. I think I'll get high. Kids don't come to treatment and say, I want to stop using drugs, because they're the best thing that ever happened to them. Why would they? It's their one coping skill.
It was like one more thing that you could hold away from mom and dad. Like one more thing that they didn't have any say in.
That's the dark side of Dylan. Let's see what we can do.
Let's see what I can get away with. My parents want me to do A, but haha, I'm gonna do D.
Oftentimes families are really angry. Parents are really angry with their kids by the time they get to drug treatment because they've lied to them, they've come out, you know, they sneak out the window, they go out at night, they aren't home on time. Parents are really angry. They have a hard time with trust or even positively reinforcing their kids anymore.
Dylan, I'll put it this way. If you give me reasons to put my thumb on you, that's your fault. And if you go crazy because you're so restricted, that's your fault. And you pay the consequences for that. You can go back to Montview to detention.
The choices that Dylan makes will result in either more freedom or a tighter box. And it's all on Dylan.
What a concept.
Yes, there's choice involved, but it's not just a matter of free will. It's a matter of constructing a system of rewards and punishments that is compatible with the capacity of that individual's brain to respond to rewards and punishments.
You're still smiling though.
Families need to know that this is a treatable illness. Every day, all day, I see kids who are the most serious kids, they get much, much better. Every treatment program all over this country sees kids who get much, much better.
One of the more frustrating things is that we know that 90% of the people with lifetime dependence started using when they were adolescents. Yet unfortunately in society, the average person doesn't show up to treatment until they've been using for 20 years. Less than 1 in 10 adolescents who already meet clinical criteria for abuse or dependence are showing up to treatment. Now what that means is we're doing a bad job of identifying and getting your kids who have problems into treatment. This is very difficult because it's not one thing. Part of it may be that parents and teachers are hoping positively that they'll grow out of it. Unfortunately, this is a very risky thing to do. It's much more important to overreact possibly.
If a kid is addicted to drugs, it's very likely that they are going to need help, therapeutic help, for someone that actually can evaluate them properly and address the multiple changes that have occurred in that kid's life as a function of taking drugs.
Kids come into treatment because parents get the vision that the kids are in trouble and they take them. or the school sees that a kid is in trouble and they say you've got to do something, or the criminal justice system says, you know, this kid has been in repeated trouble with us and drugs are the problem. They are all then, in different ways, by judge, by mother, by probation officer, by employer, by teacher, they are all being coerced into treatment. And that's fine. A child does not have to come into treatment wanting it.
If the family is totally distraught, totally lost control, the son or daughter is coming and going as they please, they can't establish control, all their friends are using, the situation's totally out of control, you may have to consider residential treatment.
I couldn't keep arguing with myself that it was a good thing to keep him safe in my house, because it wasn't a good thing.
I come from, I guess, like middle class, white America. I started using about 14. I get up some mornings and I'd be like, man, today's gonna suck. And so I just have, like, you know, I'd put a little, you know, vodka in my coffee, or, you know, a couple shots of vodka in my coffee just to get a buzz going, and then I'd go and smoke my joint. I always had some kind of weed in the morning, and I'd go get high, and then, you know, some days if I had some prescription pills left over from the weekend, I'd pop a couple of those, and then, like, you know, when you mix alcohol and the prescription pills, it heightens both.
I finally had to say, I can't get through to him. I can't get through the addiction.
Okay, what has it been like participating in treatment with other families and?
It was a long process. Ted flunked out of an outpatient process. I mean, the very first day they told him how to fake the urine tests. And so from week one, he was doing it.
I got caught stealing money out of my stepmom's bank account, and they sent me to an intensive outpatient program, which is like a non-residential. And the whole time I was in there, I was still smoking and doing it probably more excessively.
And then we went to an individual therapist and did that. And then it finally got to the point that Ted had been kicked out of both of our houses and had a choice of finding a friend to take him in or living on the street.
And so he says, so tell me about this place. And we said 6 months. And I thought he was about to bolt on 6 months.
The treatment takes time. It takes time from a neurophysiologic sense, and it takes time from a psychological and relationship sense. People don't learn new patterns of behavior in a matter of days or weeks.
Before we came here, I really don't think any of us really had much of a schedule besides, you know, hey, let's go get messed up today. You know, hey, let's go get high today. And so it sort of, I don't know, makes you internalize wanting to have a schedule and needing to stay busy all the time, because boredom is a really big trigger. Like, you know, you're just sitting around the house bored, you got a big stack of weed and a couple beers and have a party right there.
It's hard here. It's hard living here. Everybody's just used to doing drugs, and it covers up all their problems. Well, here you don't have no drugs, so you're forced to deal with your problem.
Some days I have my good days and my bad days. I feel like I just want to leave here, that I don't need this, I don't need treatment. But then there's other days, well, hey, you get out, you start a new life, a better life. And motivation, what keeps me here.
I don't know, I'm like over it now, but
it's not an easy journey. They feel like they're in this little microscope, this working lab, kind of like a bubble, because the therapies take place all day long.
I haven't really used my head in the whole time I've been here on Earth. 16 years, and I've never, not once, used my head for any kind of thinking. I've just acted and then thought about what happened.
Since you've been here for a little while, right? And what kept you from applying the coping skills that you have to help you deal with your anger? You know, the things that you've learned.
I don't know. I don't know why I didn't. They call it consequential thinking, which is you think about the consequences before you do it. I've never done that. In fact, I don't even think about, if I know I'm gonna do something wrong, I don't think it's wrong. I'm automatically, let's go do it. If they're like, hey, let's go steal this car, man, let's go.
I say things out of anger, you know what I'm saying? I mean, a lot of people, I know everybody in this room has said something they haven't meant because they said it out of anger, because they're so mad they just say things, they just wants to get it off their chest.
I feel that if I can control so much powerful anger that I got raging inside me, I can most definitely control my thoughts of wanting to smoke or wanting to drink than doing the right thing and not wanting it, or just, you know, no. I want it, but I'm not going to.
I would always avoid it, like fear of confrontation. Like my parents would be like straight up like yelling in my face, like, you know, you fuck, blah, 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 blah. And I'd just be sitting there like, mm-hmm. And I would just be thinking about, thank God I got another gram stashed somewhere in my room.
Ted's anger issue was he self-directed, he shut down, as opposed to acting out and punching somebody else out. And the other day when he had this look on his face that looked like withdrawal, and I said, are you okay? And he said, yeah, but I'm scared. And it just blew me away, because he was in touch with how he was feeling. It wasn't just, I have an uncomfortable emotion and I want to shut down.
And they say as long as I'm open and I don't lie to them about shit, then it'll be okay. Like there won't be any sort of like heavy confrontation like that.
Ted did not believe that he could change. Every choice you make that's positive, even if it's a small one, makes a change.
Give me the formula. Area of the triangle part.
I know now that I can't live the life I want to live with drugs in it. Like I know that if I do use drugs, if I decide to go down that pathway again, that the things I want to do in life aren't going to come out the way I want them to. But I know if I stay sober, I'm more motivated. I have more of a drive to try and accomplish different things.
All the work that you've put in a group, and Ted, I'm so proud of you. And thank you for choosing to do this hard work, because I'm really looking forward to being around you and having you in our lives. So thank you, and I love you.
I'm very, very excited to get back into, you know, a home environment where I feel comfortable, but also I'm very scared. It's, you know, it's really sort of like a dilemma that I have in my head, like every day, like when I get out, what the fuck am I gonna do? Like, am I gonna go and am I gonna be, you know, like sober and, you know, hopefully live a good life and deal with all my shit without having drugs, or am I gonna just like go back to the same shit, which I really don't want to do. You know, I don't know what the hell's gonna happen.
Bye, Ted. Good luck.
Treatment can work, but typically it takes 3 to 4 times. So if this is the first time you brought in your son or daughter, you can't be naive. They have very good odds of relapse. About 70% of the kids who go to treatment the first time will relapse. If they've gone 2 times, the odds of them relapsing actually goes up. Because it's not about dosage, it's not about how many times did I go to treatment. The fact that you didn't take the first time suggests that it's being more resistant or there's more multiple problems. You need to be sure to address all the problems, not just the substance use, but if there is mental health or other kinds of behavioral problems, that you're also addressing those. And you have to not think that treatment is like fixing a broken bone. We take them there, they fix them, they give me back, and my kid is brand new again. In reality, you have to take responsibility for the post-treatment continuing care and monitoring to make sure that you hold on to that progress.
Hey, I got a warrant for an individual that I'm looking for. We're headed over there now to check the house. She could be anywhere around here.
I've heard about people having their children arrested to get help. And I thought, what a desperate measure. And I used to think, I hope I never get to that point. I thought, I could never arrest my own child. I mean, how could you do that? That's like an addict getting desperate. That's how a parent, I'm desperate now. I will do anything to help my child.
Okay.
My daughter has been an addict for 7 years. She's been out on the streets right now for 30 days. But she's managed to avoid the law and avoid us, and they're very resourceful. They're very street smart.
She's obviously been here because that's her stuff on the other side. On the floor there, climbing through this window. They actually climb up the roof, sneak in the window.
I've seen her overdose twice. And the last one, she almost didn't make it.
We've already found drug paraphernalia, spoons, razors, crack pipes, Suboxone, several different things.
My daughter has stolen items from me. And in the past, I've overlooked it. But I'm hoping Detective Mitchell can get her in jail. Get her through detox where she can think clearly, because right now she can't think clearly. All she can think about is the next fix.
She says, her end of her letter says, there is no escape and I'm terrified of going to jail and even more of being dope sick.
This is when she was about 15 before the addiction had started. This is her graduation picture where she, at this point, was somewhere around 7 to 8 months clean. And this one was taken probably about 2 months ago. And she looks high to me. She was in the gifted program at school, captain of the cheerleading squad. She had a lot of friends. She had a beautiful voice. She sang at weddings and played the piano beautifully. She got that talent from her father, but she never liked herself. When you talk to people that do not have addicts, they just don't understand. You'll overhear, well, where were the parents? Well, where were you when this was happening? I was right here. I mean, I was right with my daughter. I had her in everything. I kept her busy. But, or, well, why don't you do something about it? I've done everything I could possibly do about it. When I put her in treatment, I was led to believe, and maybe it was just me because I didn't know and they didn't explain it to me, that we're going to put your daughter into treatment and she's, going to go through the treatment. She's going to learn what she has to do. And when she came out of treatment, I thought, this is it. This is good. But it wasn't.
We're also going to need to check the house if you don't mind.
I haven't seen her or spoke to her since.
Did Petoskey go through everything else, the attic and all that?
Since about 2 weeks ago.
I cry a lot, and sometimes I think I'm not going to make it. But, then I turn around and say, I have to make it. I mean, she's all I have. If anything happens to me, she won't make it. And I want her to make it because I believe in her. I know she can make it. Aubrey will be picked up today by Detective Mitchell. She'll be transported for a hearing. I got the call when he already had her at the station. He said, I have somebody here that wants to talk to you, and I just cried. I think it was just the emotions that built up inside that I heard her voice and I just all let loose. But I'm nervous. I'm nervous with what's going to happen at the magistrate's office, and I'm probably more nervous with her coming home. because it's never worked in the past, but
I was just done running. I just couldn't do it anymore. You gotta find a place to sleep every night. You gotta find ways of getting money every day. It's just too much. I didn't care what happened, just as long as I get high. But then near the end, it's just the money ran out. I had nowhere to go. I was like, right now I care. This isn't what I want.
You ready? Okay. Thank you very much. Have a good day. You too. One
say
more.
thank you.
Yes, many times.
I told her, no friends, no nothing, no visits, no fake Eaton Park lunches, no
Nothing.
nothing.
We're gonna run the house like a rehab. I'm just trying to get at what's it gonna take for you to reach your bottom?
I don't really know what a bottom is. I guess it's different for everybody. I mean, can I say I'm never gonna take another drug or another drink for the rest of my life? No, I cannot say that. Can I say I'm not gonna take a drug or drink today? Yeah, I can. You know, it works like that.
Well, I'm just thinking, what did we do wrong? Did we do anything wrong, or what didn't we do that we need to do this time? Like, stick to a program.
I don't know. I need to not be bored. I need to get a job. I need to make new friends that don't use.
You need to go to meetings?
I know enough about addiction and recovery. I mean, I've been going to rehab since for what, 10 years or something. So 16, whatever, 8 years, 7 years. I could run a rehab.
We need to sit down and make a plan, a goal, a contract, something, and live by it. Does that sound good?
Yep.
You help me, and I'll help you, and maybe we'll make it. What do you think?
Sounds good.